Hi, everybody. I'm Hamid. I am the product manager working on Trello, specifically on the PowerUps. I've been at Trello for 5 years. Basically, as everything. I've written code for every single code base. I did some management, and now I just am a PM, so I do not know the work, and I get all the credit. So I'm here today to tell you and convince you all to build PowerUps for Trello. Clicker works, that's good. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about what Trello is, PowerUps are, how it all fits together. I'm going to share an overview of some of the biggest opportunities to build and make money. And I'm going to tell you kind of where we're going with the platform so you know what to expect. So before I get into all of that, how many of you have used Trello or heard of it? Oh, OK. How about before the acquisition? Oh, OK. How many of you used it a year ago? Oh, OK, cool. Got some super fans. This is awesome. All right, so for those of you who don't know, Trello is basically sticky notes on a wall. So if you've ever walked into an office and you've seen a bunch of Post-it notes on a wall, and then people come up and they write something down and they put it, and there's like usually like titles for things, and then people have a meeting and they stand around and they pick it up and they move it over. That's basically what Trello is. It's just a visual version of that. It's on steroids. It's very collaborative. So instead of a wall, we have a board. So a board is a place where your team comes together, collaborate, and they can see everything that's going on. Instead of the little sections with titles, we have lists, so that this can be categories, it can define a process, it can be whatever you want. And then instead of sticky notes, we have a thing called a card, which is way more powerful than a sticky note, because you can click on it or tap on it, and you can open it. When you open it, you can attach files. See, that has a nice minivan there. Love those. You can attach files, you can attach checklists, have descriptions, have conversations on there, you can mention people. And this is very, very, very powerful for a lot of things. So I'm going to show you some examples. So those of you that had their hand up, probably, maybe have a board like this. So this is a very popular use case of Trello among developers. So this team is using Trello to manage their sprints and their backlogs. So they have a list for all their sprints, their backlogs, things that are in progress. They can all see this, and it's actually very analogous to that analog version of just sticky notes on a wall, because that's probably what it would look like. Right, so that is just the developer team, development team using Trello. The other really popular use case is editorial calendars and just marketing teams in general. So this has a similar layout in the sense there's things that flows this way. So they have lists for things that are ready for publishing, blog posts that are being edited, things that are being written, and all of that. And the really nice thing about this is that they all get the same shared perspective. They don't really need to read any of the content on there. Even if you blur your eyes, you can tell that they're not researching enough stuff, right? So that's probably going to be a problem later on. So they get this perspective, and they can see who's slacking and who's not. So that's editorial calendars. Those of you that saw the Summit keynote probably saw this board. This is a board that one of our customers shared with us, and we were like, oh my God, that is amazing. Why don't we do this? So we stopped using our internal wiki, we started doing this. So this board is really cool because it's not a process. The other two that I showed you were processes. This is not a process. We kind of have some of a process with a to-do done list. So this is great. So somebody new starts, you copy them a board and say, do this stuff. And they do it, and you as a manager, again, can just see, well, this person's not really slacking off, but they still have a lot of stuff to do, right? The other bit that's cool about this is there's like a mini wiki on the right. So if you need to, change the temperature in the office, you just have that right there. So this is both process on the left and a repository on the right. You have a list of people of who's who in the office. So if you go in the kitchen and you're like, oh, hey, Bradley, and an awkward amount of stuff about them because you've read all those cards. And that actually what we do for us is we have it as part of our onboarding process that you go in and you create a card for yourself in the master overview board or master template board so people know about you. So that's some work use cases. But actually, Trello is used across many, many, many things. Actually, about half our users use Trello for both personal things and work things. So this is an example of somebody, this is an actual board, actually. One of our program managers uses Trello to plan his meals. So they have their partner on there, they can collaborate, they can see what they want to cook. When they plan their meals out for the week, they actually create their shopping list off of this. And they can actually just like share this board with their friends. They're like, look at all this cool stuff that I got. They show off how good they're at cooking, because they also attach pictures. So really popular for even just like small personal use cases. And then finally, we have weddings. Weddings apparently are a crazy amount of work. You have a whole team dedicated to organizing it, and wedding planners just love Trello. It's very visual, it's very collaborative, it's very simple. And here they can just figure out, what they need with the wedding rings, organize the venues, see what dates are available, pick out the suits, the logo, the wedding shop logo as well, figure out what they want on invitations, and it's just very powerful. So those use cases are just scratching the surface. That is just barely getting started with what people use Trello for. And it's not really just those teams that I showed you that are using Trello for development or marketing or whatever. We have users across all teams, in all companies, in all sectors, from small design agencies to real estate management companies that manage offices and buildings, to even like very heavy-duty manufacturing companies. Have you ever seen one of those like really big coal trucks that is like 30 feet tall? We have people using Trello for that. Apparently works really good for them. So again, all teams, but also personal life. So things that you're planning a road trip, that is also a team. It's a group of people, you're planning it. And in this sense, Trello is actually closer to Confluence than it is to Jira. And I'm going to answer a question that we got a lot yesterday at the booth. Apparently, everybody's confused as to, a lot of people are confused, like, why did Atlassian buy Trello? What does this mean for Jira? They're going to kill Trello? What's up? So I'm going to answer it. So Atlassian did not spend all that money on Trello to kill it. It did not spend all the money to get a boards feature into Jira. Doesn't make sense, right? So the way that I like to think about it is way over here, you have Confluence. And Confluence is really good if you just need to dump some stuff. You just say, create new, and you just start typing, right? There's no structure. You can do whatever you want. Throw a picture in there. That's cool. It's all good. No structure. And then like way over there in the keynote hall, you have Jira. And Jira is very much the opposite. You have a lot of stuff. You need to manage a lot of complexity. You have complex workflows. You have an administrator whose job is to help set up those processes, right? So they're kind of like the complete opposites. Trello's in the middle. It fills that hole, right? So if you need something that is not quite as freeform as Confluence, but you need a little bit of structure around it that Trello kind of provides, but you don't really need the full Jira thing, right? You're not going to create a Jira project every time you need to just think about something. So that's where Trello fits in. That is the positioning. So as part of that, it means that Trello has some structure, but it's not very structured. It doesn't prescribe, it doesn't tell you, do this or do that. And this is by design. We have worked very, 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 very hard to keep Trello universally applicable, not to have meanings for anything. Those of you that use Trello, when you go create a card, that thing that you enter, you'll notice that it doesn't have a title. It doesn't tell you enter the name of the card or the title of the card, it just shows up. So we tried very hard not to tell you what things are. And this has made Trello very successful in just being broadly applicable, because people have stuff in their head, they can just dump it into Trello, and it works. It's just boards, lists, and cards. It literally is just Post-its on a wall. You can put whatever you want on there. And we really obsess a lot over this and keeping that broad applicability and simplicity of Trello. In fact, anytime that we think about adding something to Trello, there are two basic principles, guidelines that it has to meet. First one, whatever we do, whatever we change, it has to make Trello better for everybody. So those of you that have been using Trello for kind of dev sprints and all of that probably want points, you want burn down charts, you want, what else you want? Swim lanes, all of that stuff. We get a lot of users asking for that. And so now, okay, so let's say that we add swim lanes to Trello. It's part of the core product, it's awesome. All the developers are super happy. But then the wedding planners go into Trello and they're like, what's a swim lane? What is that? How am I going to plan my meals with swim lanes? Right? That doesn't make sense. It makes Trello more complicated. So now you've pigeonholed Trello into a specific use case and you've reduced that broad applicability. And that's why we haven't added that feature. And similarly, wedding planners are like, can I have seating charts, RSVP lists? So okay, we go in and we add RSVP lists and seating charts and all that. But then you go again into the sprint board example, and you're like, what do I do with a seating chart? Doesn't make any sense, right? So basically, we never add anything that is use case specific. This is why we have stickers and we don't have simulates or points or anything, because stickers actually turn out to be very, very useful. So that's the first one. The second principle is that it has to make Trello simpler, or at least not more complex. So what this basically means is anything that requires the user to like stop and think and trying to figure out what the thing is, we're not going to do it. So anything new that requires users to like get something, we're not going to do. And the good rule of thumb around this is basically no new nouns. Because if you add a new noun, you've added a new object. The users have to figure out how it fits. What's the mental model? Those of you that are developers probably just recognize that Trello is a simple tree. And just some data hanging off of it. So we're not going to do anything that complicates Trello. So one example of this, if a lot of you I think might be using Trello for project management, and you're like, oh, I wish I could have a done thing. So it turns out actually that using Trello for things that can be done, like tasks or whatever, is a very popular use case. So we're just going to gloss over the first principle, and let's go into the simplicity thing. Right? So then you say, OK, so let's say now you can say that a card is done, or a list is done, as a board is done. So that isn't too bad, right? But now the user has to go in, and they have to understand, OK, well, I have a card, but I also have a done card. What's the difference? When I create a card, can I just create a done card? What about a list? What does actually done mean? Right? If a list is done, are all the cards in it done? What if I archive a card? Does it suppress notifications? Wait, what if I get mentioned? What about a board? OK, let's say we figured all of that out. And then we go back into the new hire onboarding example. What does it mean for a person to be done? Right? It kind of works good for the left side of the stuff where it was like to do and done, but not really well for the people side. Right? So this is why we don't really add a lot of features. And we're very OK with this. And it turns out actually that boards, lists, and cards are really good for about 80% of the stuff that you got to do. Right? Trello is just good enough for a lot of stuff. It's not perfect. If you're using Trello for task management, you might want it done. If you want Trello for wedding planners, you might want seating charts. But you really don't need that, it turns out, for like 80% of the stuff that you would do. So boards, lists, and cards, sticky notes on the wall are good enough for 80% of the stuff. So this is why we've gotten away without having to like add a lot of features. And why we are OK with like not modifying the core product and adding all this stuff in there. But this doesn't mean that our users like don't need this stuff, right? It's very dismissive of me to say like, oh, wedding planners, you don't need seating charts, or developers, you don't need swim lanes, you need point tracking, you don't need all this stuff. Our users do need that extra power. They do need Trello to be able to do stuff that is very specific to their use case. They do need that extra flexibility and just like making boards into purpose-built applications for their specific use case. That's where PowerUps come in. That is how we get the other 20%. So 80% boards, lists, and cards. Turns out good enough. 20% is PowerUps. So PowerUps are add-ins that either add extra features to Trello, like calendars for the editorial team or custom fields, or that specialize Trello for specific use cases. They can add extra service integrations. They can do a lot of stuff. And they're enabled on a board. They're not on by default, so if you need a thing, you go and you enable it. So they're kind of like very similar to the Atlassian Marketplace add-ons. You just add it in, except ours are right literally on a board, or apps on your phone. Very similar to that. So I'll show you some examples. I'll go back to this one. So those of you that were paying attention, I hope that's all of you, you probably noticed that there's 3 icons on the top right. So this team is actually using the entire suite of Atlassian products. They're using Trello, Bitbucket, Confluence, and Jira. I guess there's other ones, but they're using those 4 products. And then if you actually look a little closer in the in-progress list, you can see there's a little green icon. There's like a pull request thing. It says 1 out of 1. So that is the Bitbucket PowerUp that is giving the user just a bit more perspective into what's going on with their stuff. And this is great for the user, because now they don't have to go into Bitbucket and go back and forth and context switch and just alt-tab all day long. Trello just gives them just enough information. And there's actually a bunch of other ones that have those same icons. And it's even better than that, because now if you open one of these cards, PowerUps can also add data here. So this is the Bitbucket PowerUp, adding more information about the pull request and giving you the status. You can see who's in charge and last time was updated and if the pipeline succeeded. This doesn't give you the full diff. If you want the full diff, go to Bitbucket, but this is just right enough. This is just enough information at this level. So that is an example, again, of dev boards. Remember this guy? And so this is the editorial calendar. So this marketing team loves this view because it gives them a view into the pipeline, right? So they need more things to research, otherwise they're gonna, in a month, be in a bad situation. But this view doesn't really give them a sense of what's going out when, right? You have little dates all around, but you don't really what does that look like? What you really want is a calendar. Turns out there's a Calendar PowerUp that gives you a different view of the Trello data. So now this team is able to see what is going out when, and they're like, okay, so the week of the 12th is pretty bad. Why don't we just reschedule that 5 ways to simplify left and just drag that card over, and they can do that. So they get more perspective on the work that they have. So that's an example of a feature PowerUp and a service integration. This is how it all fits together. So you have your core Trello, boards, lists, cards, attachments, stickers, all that cool stuff. That is good enough for 80%. And on top of that, we have the PowerUp platform that delivers the extra 20% of stuff that you need. And there are basically two basic categories of PowerUps, right? You have your service integrations with Google Drive, Salesforce, Jira, GitHub, Slack, all the tools that people use. That is how we deliver those. And then there are feature PowerUps. So these feature PowerUps, they extend the base Trello model, like custom fields that lets you attach structured data to cards, basically Jira issue fields, or calendar, which gives you a different perspective into what's going on. Burndown, which gives you a burndown chart. It's pretty self-explanatory. Packet tracker, which I really like, because if you're using Trello to manage swag that you're sending around for your customers, and then you attach a DHL or UPS tracking number, Trello will actually just show you where the package is. You don't have to go to the other tool, like the little badge. It's cool. So I just spent 17 minutes talking about all that. You're probably sitting there like, okay, well, why do I care about that? It's all kind of cool. Thought about it, spent a lot of time on those slides, but why do I care? Well, you should care because there is a very, very large opportunity here for you to build these PowerUps like many of you have done with other Atlassian products by building add-ons. So while I was working on the stock, I spent a lot of time thinking about what I would want to know if I was potentially considering maybe evaluating the possibility of going to developer docs and checking this PowerUp thing out. And I would want to throw three basic things. The first thing I would want to know is what's the size of the market? How many users could I potentially get for whatever I decide to build? The second one was how easy is it to reach those people? How easy is it to build something, get it in front of them, and satisfy their needs? What is the competition like? And then finally, what do I actually build? What would actually get traction? And we all have limited time. I don't want to waste my time building something that nobody's going to use. So I'm going to talk about the first two now, and I'm going to give you a list later. So Trello has 22 million users, and it's growing very fast. There's a large market. When we got acquired a few months ago, that was 19 million, and now it's 22. That is a lot of users. If you're looking for distribution, we got it. Second part, PowerUps are front and center. Because we really cannot do much to the core Trello product without mucking it up, this is actually how we're delivering a lot of those features to our users. So that's why we put them directly in front of the user and why we market them very heavily. And they're a core part of Trello. And finally, it is really easy to build something. And you should stick around for Bentley's talk, back there in Trello t-shirt, because he's going to give you a lot more technical details. And I spent a lot of time thinking, okay, so how can I show this to you? And I really couldn't come up with anything, so I'm just going to give you a glitch.com URL. If you start now, you can have a very non-trivial PowerUp working by the end of this talk. That is the source code for a PowerUp that we just launched called Trello's Cards News that lets you archive a Trello card and have it come back at a later time. But if you're going to do that, please also listen to me. So I want to drive home 2 points. When I say that PowerUps are like a core part of Trello, I really do mean it. So when you open a Trello board, PowerUps are right there in the product. They're as prominent as adding members or sharing in Trello. That is how you view what's going on the board. And we're constantly working on making these even more naturally discoverable. So if a user could benefit from your PowerUp, we want the user to know about it, because we are delivering so much value to our customers via this mechanism, because we're building Trello this way. We really can't add stuff to the core Trello product without screwing it up. So we are adding features via PowerUps ourselves. That's how we did custom fields. So even features that you would consider to be core parts of the product among some of the competitive products are PowerUps in Trello world, because they are either add complexity or they're too use case specific. So we are building Trello this way. In fact, all of our apps are built using the exact same API that is available to you. We don't have a public and a private API. We have one public API. So if you want to know how to do something in Trello, just open Chrome, do it, copy paste that call, add your app key and token, and it will just work. Except like making accounts and changing passwords. Changing passwords might work. No, I don't know. Try it. So besides the API, you have these 4 basic building blocks for PowerUps. You have badges. Badges are little bits and pieces of info that you attach to cards. This is how the Bitbucket PowerUp added those little snippets of what's going on with the pull requests. So Packet Tracker does stuff. You can add whatever you want. And this gives users just enough perspective into some of these other more complicated things that are going on. Excuse me. The second part is handling URLs. This is how we do service integrations. PowerUp can just say, I handle Google Drive things, and you have a Google Drive PowerUp. That's how Bitbucket again does work. So those are the 2 first ones. And then we have buttons and menus. So you can attach buttons at the board and card level. This is how Calendar works. Click that, and it brings up custom UI. So you're basically able to bring up whatever UI you want and build whatever capabilities you need. And that's how Calendar works again. So one thing I want to say about that, if you go this route, great power comes great responsibility. Keep in mind the user experience, and the default by Trello is very collaborative. Make it collaborative and a delight for user experience. So that's what we have now, and this is where we're going. The first thing we're working on is discoverability. So what we want, like I said earlier, if a user could benefit from whatever you build, we want them to know about it without being annoying, like big flashing ads. We have a lot of ideas. If you're using Trello, you're going to see some of them coming up. Stay tuned. The second thing we're working on is making PowerUps more powerful, letting you build more compelling experiences. So this is adding better support for automation, making PowerUps just be able to do stuff without authentication necessarily, bringing PowerUps to our mobile apps. We have a lot of mobile users. And then we're making custom fields a core part of the platform. This is because we needed to make custom fields better, and we said we don't want to special case Trello, so we just made it a core part of the platform. You'll be able to do everything that we can do. And then we were working on making PowerUps available at more levels of Trello, starting off at the team level. This has been one of the most requested things that we had from our users, and I would keep this in mind front and center as you're building whatever you're going to build. So if you think about that editorial calendar example that I had earlier, that marketing team probably has a board for like events like this one, or other marketing campaigns that are coming out. And what they really want to be able to do is see all of that stuff one level above, at the team level, on a calendar, and see what's coming out when. That gives them a much better perspective, and it aligns, and it gives them so much more value. And as we all know, the more value you give to the user, the more they're willing to pay for it. And finally, we're working on making it so that you can just charge for your PowerUp directly from within Trello. We don't have that capability right now. You have to manage your own billing and licensing. We're looking at making that work. If you have ideas or requirements about that, please hunt me down. I want to talk to you. So then, I hope you're all really convinced and are thinking about, what do I build? What are the things that are going to give you the best value, best return rather, on your investment of time and money? Here they are. There are 3 basic areas. And they're actually all very kind of interlinked. The first one is just specializing Trello. Like I said, we're not adding use case specific things to Trello. So if you just do that, there's a large opportunity there. The second one is building features that are missing in Trello that complement the existing Trello experience. And then finally, there's automation around supporting processes and everything that exists in Trello. And I'm going to cover each of these individually now. So excuse me, some water. Thank you, Sheldon. So specializing Trello. So Trello is used across all teams. Like I said, not just teams in a software company or a marketing company, it's all teams across all companies, across all sectors. And then those people, they go home and they use it in their personal life as well. So it's just all teams, very, very broad, very, very horizontal, as we like to say. And all of these users, they all get the same exact boards, lists, and cards. So there's a very large opportunity to build things that are specific to an individual use case or a series of use cases. And the best way to do that is to just add meaning to a thing. Like earlier, I talked about how Trello doesn't really tell you what anything is. If you're building something for a specific use case, you can just say a Trello, like a card is a task. So if a card is a task, it can be done. Probably means that the lists are stages of a task, right? And if you just go from there, you can come up with a lot of stuff. If a card is a blog post, probably means it needs reviewing, editing, needs integrations with whatever content publishing platform people are using. So there is just a lot of opportunity to specialize Trello for all of the various things that people use it for. And these are just some examples. There is a crazy amount of applicability. So I know I'm not really telling you anything of value. I'm just saying make Trello better. Go out there, make it better, right? You really don't know what you're going to do with that. It's very nebulous. And this is kind of by design because this session is really nowhere near long enough to give you like a nice exhaustive list of stuff you can do. So go there. This has a lot of use cases and examples and boards that you can copy and look at. It has write-ups for each of those of like how people are actually using these, and it's going to be a great starting off point for you to start on this adventure with us. Taking pictures. Okay, next one, complementary features. So we're not really adding a lot of features to Trello, again, because we don't want to make it more complex or reduce that broad approachability of Trello. So just a bunch of stuff that's missing. And again, the box breaks down into 3 categories. The first one is board remixes, which is a horrible name for something really awesome. So Trello gives you one view of the stuff that you have in Trello. It's just boards, lists, and cards. It's good enough. But again, if you're like a marketing team, or sorry, editorial calendar, you need a way to see that stuff on a calendar. And there are many more of these. Mind maps, Gantt charts. If you have a Gantt chart add-in, bring it to Trello, you're going to do well. Table views, and many other ways you can just potentially take that data and present it in a different way. And then there's just straight up missing features. Notes, polling capabilities, time tracking. We have a lot of agencies and contractors using Trello, and they just need to track time. We're not going to add that to Trello, to the core product, because again, it reduces the broad applicability. Like, what does it mean for a person to be time tracked? I don't know. Or a dress to be time tracked, using it for wedding planning. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And there's reporting. And I'm calling this one out specifically because it's such a large area, because Trello just straight up does not have reporting. Yeah. So if you build reporting things, you will do well. And what this means basically is if a large team is using Trello, they might have difficulty finding out what's going on As a manager, I need to know who's doing what. I need audit trails, logs. I need to see what the loads are of the individual person, what's the velocity of the team, all of that stuff. Excuse me. So that is just some of the areas around missing features and reporting board remixes. And all of this is very related to specializing Trello. If you add semantic meaning to something, you will very quickly start to find opportunities. And then there's automations. Automation is very, very nebulous, and it's an emerging area that we're seeing. So Trello is great, but it's manual. Cards don't move by themselves. Check items don't get checked by themselves. If you want something to happen in Trello, you have to literally go in there and move it, click it. It is literally like the wall. Like if you want that Post-it note to move from there to there, you have to go and pick it up and move it over there. So again, stepping back, if you're using Trello for project management, a card is a task. It probably means that the check items underneath it are subtasks, and when they're all done, you probably want to take that card and you want to move it one over. So you could have a nice PowerUp that just basically does that. If all the check items are checked, this card moves over to the done list. If you build parent-child relationships, so you say, oh, okay, so if the check item is a link to another card, then if this card moves to its own done list, you come back here, you check it, and the card is now done, you move that thing over. Well, this is something that our users really need because nobody really wants to do housekeeping work. And this again arises from the whole use case specific thing that I was mentioning earlier. So those are some of the biggest areas of opportunity. I know that it's kind of nebulous. I haven't really given you a list of stuff to go out and build because it's the Wild West. So what this means is we have a very large and very engaged user base across a wide variety of use cases for every single team. And there are so many opportunities for each one of those for somebody to come in and build things that add enough value for them that specialize Trello and make it great. And this is how we are building Trello, right? Platform is still young, got a lot of users. So there are many other opportunities for you to investigate. And I'm going to stick around and ask, if you have questions, please email me. That's my email. Take pictures. Please email me. I'm going to stick around and get some questions. If you have an add-in that you're thinking about, does this actually make sense on Trello? Come find me. If you have a crazy idea, come find me. If you want to know how to get a token for a user, come find me. If you want to know what my favorite episode of Pop-Up Girls is, come find me. I'll be here. And also, please stick around for Bentley's talk, because he's going to actually go into a lot of details around the technical capabilities.